Welcome to the Renewing the Mind podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Sanchez. Joined with me, as always, my dad, Dr. Raul Sanchez. How you doing, Dad?
I'm feeling amazing. I'm feeling like back in the day, NDSU, we had a saying, those who stay will play. Those who play will be champions. And then once a champion, always a champion. There's the ring kiss right here, baby. Here you go.
And there's the ring kiss. Hey, on this podcast, we teach you how to renew your perspective, move towards uncertainty, and find what's awesome about that in every situation. If you're on Facebook, give us a like, click that share button. If you're on YouTube, give us a thumbs up, ring the bell, subscribe to the channel so you can get all the latest content that we drop. And if you're listening to the podcast, like the podcast, give us those 5 stars and leave us a review. Well, as you can see, we are back in the studio, back to where it all started. Got a new desk, a little bit different arrangement, took some things off the wall, moved some things around, placed that there. I didn't even see you do that. Where'd you do that?
Just using what we have, just trying to figure out like what we're going to use.
Got a lamp here, got the 2x logo, as you can see. So it's going to be a work in progress. This is season 3. So by that, what we mean is we usually go from anywhere from January to February until a couple times we went to October, November. This last one, we went all the way through almost December. So we just try to take some breaks, kind of take a little refresh, kind of get a little bit better vision and planning and what we want the podcast to be. We don't just want to keep going through the motions from time to time. We want to take a step back and kind of
and also like
launch into that.
We have like what we were trying to figure out the other day. We have like 9 birthdays in November.
Yep.
Or 7 maybe. It's just ridiculous. So what happens is like we just have to postpone, cancel. So we decided to take off November, December for family. And then normally we fire back up in January. But Tyler and I kept talking and we started thinking, hey, you know what, let's just take another month off and kind of like let it sit for a little bit. And then February, actually, we wanted to go February, but then everybody just started getting sick. So we postponed, we canceled a couple of times. So today we wanted to let you know we got this special guest. See what I'm saying? So we can get started back with us just
back together,
in the same room, back together, get going. So this is going to be a little bit different because we're just going to talk literally about like that 3-month sabbatical. Like, how did it feel? What were you thinking about? Personally, I missed the podcast because it does help me organize thoughts about like what I would like to get out to people, like important pieces. And sometimes I just use in the clinic things that like continue to come up, like hot topics, basically like a continual plan. Then I go to prayer, read scriptures about it, try to figure out like, man, how does this apply to people? Is this just a trend? Is this just kind of like one of those things that just happens? And so that's what we want to talk about today is like, how did you fight through like, you know, your sabbatical? Like, what'd you learn? What'd you miss? Those are the things we're gonna be talking about today. And make sure you join in on comments because we will answer some of those questions. We will kind of push through. We want this to be as interactive as we can. And the most feedback we've heard, you know, consistently would be get Tyler and you back in the same office again, you know, get you guys back, the bantering, you know, kind of close together.
Yep.
We went away from it just because of COVID. And then we stayed with it just honestly because of convenience. Right. So and then we just started just thinking about, you know, hey, you know what? It does help to kind of push together and kind of make this more of a unified approach rather than kind of just making it kind of separate.
Yep. The goal would be to add a couple camera angles. Right now, we just got this camera angle. So we're trying to figure it out to do it as effective as possible with also not taking the most time possible.
Yes.
So what we used to do is have 3 cameras, 3 cards, dump them all, edit them all together. So this is a way to streamline in StreamYards our process. So it'll be a work in progress, but I'm excited. It feels good to be back kind of recording in the same room. It's easier to communicate back and forth this way.
Bro, you got green tea?
I did.
Let's go.
I snagged it from your cupboard.
I've been trying to push green tea for years. So.
But you need the mint and peach, and then you drop a little lemonade powder in there.
Yeah.
And then it's what Starbucks calls like a medicine ball.
I'm kind of like old school. Like I just stick with what works. So it's good to have you push me on a lot of different areas. But I'm just like, man, it ain't broke. Don't fix it. Like my new bow that was like, you know, a couple years old, but I used that bow for like 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah. It's sitting over there too. Okay. So you want to go first? You want me to go first? What do you want to do?
I want to jump in.
All right, go. What'd you learn while we took some time off?
So my theme that I figured out here over the sabbatical is just kept thinking, Lord, help me to show me how to grow. Show me how to grow. Show me how to grow. And then that just turns into like how I send text to the kids, you know, how I work with my wife, just show me how to grow. And it's crazy. So we went to a conference this weekend with Terrence and Melody and Ames, and it's at Life Point Church, and it's called You Are Worthy. And it's a gentleman named Eric Gilmore. somewhere from Florida. So I'm not sure his church, but his name's Eric Gilmore. And so he started talking about Mary and Martha and the story of Lazarus. And I'll tie that in a second. But when it hit, I literally, man, just like sometimes when the Lord just speaks to you and you're like, no way. So like, you know, I go across the state and I hear a dude from across the country and he touches on the exact same thing the Lord's been working on me, which is, for me, it's transparency. Okay. So my growth has been transparency. And so here's what the Lord dropped on me. So in a marriage, so speaking to me and mom, me and Stacy, Stacy wants to see through my heart, because if she knows where I stand, she's all in. If she comes up to me and asks me what's wrong and I do the manly thing and just say, I'm good, then you can tell she's kind of just ruffled. And then she'll come and ask me like 13 times, you know, mom, she'll just keep pounding and pounding and pounding. Everything okay? You okay? Are you sure? Okay. And then she starts to get internal, like, did I do something wrong? That kind of thing. And really nothing's going on. I'm just a processor. I'm a thinker. So I kind of think through it. So I started just praying on that thing and letting Stacy in on a lot of things. And it's been really, really, you know, eye-opening for us as that transparency thing. And as I kept pressing in, I kept thinking, okay, so it's the bride and the groom, and Jesus died for the church. Jesus is the husband. The church is the wife. And then I'm like, I'm supposed to die. So what am I supposed to die to? Like, okay, ego. So keep showing Stacy, keep showing shit. And here's what's really crazy. It hit me. The Lord says to me, like, how can you tell counterfeit money? And I was like, what? It's kind of weird because, you know, we've been praying about podcast and my book and all these other things. We got so many irons in the fire, like just trying to trim it all down and slow it down. So I thought it was like a money game. And I was like, wait, what? So I kind of pray into it a little bit. It's like, how do you tell counterfeit money? And I was like, oh, you hold it up to the light, right? You take a bill and you hold it up to the light. And then it all just broke down. So the idea is, as a Christian, how do you hold yourself up to the light? As a Christian, the light is Christ.
Sure.
So as I get closer with my heart toward Christ, I can see myself, right? When I hide my heart from Christ, he doesn't get to come in because he respects us with the free will stuff.
Yep. So
if God comes by us and says, hey, how you doing? God meets me in my morning devotions and says, hey, how you feeling? And I was like, bro, I'm good. Then I get that. That's all I get. Okay. So as you press into counterfeit, you know, I started thinking, what does that look like to me? What does it look like to me? Okay, that's ego. Okay, that's pride. Okay, that's the spirit of Leviathan, which stops us, pulls us apart from being close to Jesus. And a couple of things hit me like, okay, so as a Christian, the light is Jesus Christ. So how do I get closer to Jesus Christ? Well, prayer and fasting. Okay, and as I get closer to him, here's what's really cool. We see each other as flawed humans. We get that. But it's been said, it's a cliche, but it's 100% true. If you wrong me, I kind of judge you by your outcome. Like, hey, bro, that wasn't right. Okay. When we do something wrong, like if I did something to you, I would say, surely Ty knows my intention.
Right. I didn't mean
that, man. I mean, he knows me. He knows my heart. He knows me. But see, if I'm not transparent, you don't know me. True. Right. Yeah. And so what's really cool is we're afraid of going to God because we feel like we're going to be judged. But it's the exact opposite. The closer we get to God, the more transparent I am with him, the more I see myself. The more when I come to you, you see me for who I truly am. You see me for my intentions, not for the outcome.
Yeah.
Okay. Now this is crazy because God doesn't judge our outcomes. He judges our intention. Okay. Now let's go full circle. So we're in Ames and we're at Life Point. This guy, Eric Gilmore, is talking about Jesus is worthy. And he's basically talking about like, who do you see? How do you see Jesus? When you see Jesus, do you just see a rabbi kind of stuff? And he goes through, it's in John 11. And it's a story of Martha and Mary in the Bible when Lazarus dies, which is their brother. Okay. And this is crazy, but I think it's like 11:21 or something. Okay. Lazarus dies. Jesus is walking. He's coming from the wilderness. He's coming into their town, and Martha sees him, and Martha runs up to him, and Martha says the exact same words. And I want to get the words right because it's so important to understand this part. She says, Martha says, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Okay. And then Jesus talks to her about like the resurrection. I am the way, the truth, and the life. I'm the resurrection. Like, do you believe that? And then she says in verse 27, yes, Lord. She calls him Lord. I believe. Then she goes on to call him the Christ. And she goes on a little bit more and calls him the Son of God. Okay. So 3, what you would think of honoring positions, right? And what Eric Gilmore was talking about is like her eyes, did she see him as Lord, or did her eyes see him as a rabbi? Okay.
Teacher.
Right. And so to me, this is like he's backing up the transparency thing. So I'm just bawling because I'm just like, wow, this is so deep that a dude from Florida has to come and just connect with me on that thing. It's how cool God works. And so here's what's really crazy though. Verse 27. Okay. Lord Christ, the Son of God, right? The Son. And then verse 28, Mary walks off because she's frustrated. It says that she goes to talk to Mary and says to Mary, and the Bible uses the word secretly. She leans down and says to Mary, Mary, the teacher is here and he's calling for you. So publicly, Lord Christ, the Son of God, and then privately, hey, your teacher's here. Do you get that? Okay, God didn't judge those outcomes. God judged the intent. Because she sought the teacher, the rabbi, she got the response of a teacher and rabbi. It became theoretical. It became philosophical, that kind of a thing. It became instructional. Okay, now let's go down a few verses. Then Mary sees Jesus and he's still walking. Mary runs up and falls at his feet. And she says, word for word, the exact same statement, which is, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But she already had fallen on his feet when she's screaming that. Okay. And she's crying. And the Bible says Jesus was weeping. Okay. And he saw Mary weeping. And then it said that his spirit was deeply moved. So when he first sees Mary, his spirit's deeply moved. Now, there was a bunch of, the Bible just said a bunch of Jewish people who were there with Mary. And then when Mary ran to get Jesus, all these friends and family mourning with Mary ran after her because they thought she was just broken. Maybe they thought that she's going to see the tomb or something, and they chase her down and they get to the spot where she falls at Jesus. So all these Jews are weeping too. So Jesus sees her approach a king, and Jesus sees her intention is your God. My face is on your feet, but I'm still mad at you. Mm-hmm. And word for word, she says the exact same thing that Martha says. But here's the crazy. The Bible says that Jesus' spirit was moved and his spirit groaned. And then he turned and he saw all the Jews weeping. And then it says Jesus wept. Okay. So from the transparency concept, I could go and act like you're God and act like you're all that and be all that and say it to your face. But then behind the closed door, hey, your teacher's here. Do you get it? Mm-hmm. And so Eric was saying how you see that person dictates your answer. Okay. But to me, and I agree 100%, like 100%, the way that was said, I mean, I was just like taking notes like crazy. He was on point. And then to me, God, it just rang true in my thing. Like, see, Sanchez, I'm working on your transparency. And I just broke down because I was like, wow,
are you willing to be vulnerable?
Are you? So would I fall down at Jesus's feet? And there's times I was like, no, I would have went to Jesus like, yeah, Lord, walked away and be like, but how come you couldn't heal him?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And so sometimes
if you would have been here, that's a statement we all say.
Yeah. And
if you would have showed up, if you would have done this, if you would have been.
Yes. And even though like in my heart, I could say, dude, I'm Mary all day. I got clutter. I don't finish dishes. I'll put off yard work. Like I'm relational. I'm Mary all day. But right there in the seat, I was like, yeah, Lord, I can see that I can. Yeah, Martha. Right. So now that's what I want to talk about, because like, man, if you can just take some time away and you can just ask yourself a question, how transparent am I with God? How transparent am I with my wife or significant other, fiance, girlfriend? How transparent am I with my kids? You know how many kids don't talk about hard things with their dad because they think their dad's going to judge them, when in fact the dad did worse things than they did?
Well, because you can only be as real as you are real. So you can only receive how criticism or instruction or guidance on what you're telling me. And so if you're guarded to all those relationships, you're not really letting anyone have any advice or any deep love or vulnerability, because I can only accept you for what you've told me. Someone told me a long time ago that as human beings, we want to be fully known and still fully loved. And Jesus is that only relationship where we can fully be known to him. And like you said, you have to allow God into those areas of your life. Mm-hmm. God, I said it before, God's like a gentleman. He doesn't barge into certain areas. So the areas we open up to, mm-hmm. those are the areas that then God can kind of nurture and correct. But if we close that all off, right, God's just going to barge into our life. And so right. As human beings, that's difficult to be fully known and still fully loved.
Right. Okay. So you said you have to be real as only to the level that you're real. So
I can only our relationship is close as my realness to you and your realness to me, your vulnerability, your transparency, whatever word you want to use.
Okay.
That's the only, as real as we are, that's determined on how we're going to live.
Right. And I would just one more step further, one-on-one, me personally in the mirror, me personally, my prayer time, me personally, my workouts, like me and my worst, me at 2 a.m. when I can't sleep. How real am I to myself? Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's just give that a number. Let's say 4 out of 10. Then the only gift I can give you when you come to me as your dad, I can only give you 4, right? Sure. I can't give you 7 because I'm not that transparent with myself, right? And this is what Jesus exposed to me is it doesn't matter what Mary gets. It doesn't matter what Martha gets. What are you getting and how come? Okay. So let me make this very real. It's funny to me, man. I just like, wow, when God drops something on you and just keeps feeding it, keeps feeding it, keeps feeding it, keeps feeding it. It's like, okay, pause life. Let me figure out this transparency thing. Okay, so we were at the archery tournament, okay, and I'm an archery coach. We're at the state tournament here where we live, and I go up to the kids, and I can just see kids are nervous as just crap because like they're normally joking, even like a little bit silly.
State's a different level.
State's a different level, man. And normally you shoot with like maybe there's 20 targets across the gym, but maybe only like let's say 15 of them are full. You know, this is 50 targets, 2 people per target. That's 100 people deep, and everybody's there, and you have like. You're just claustrophobic kind of. So you can see the kids get a little bit nervous. So you lean down and you're like, hey, how you doing? And like, oh yeah, I'm good. And then really quickly, you can see him from on the side. Like I'm just kind of take a look at him like, wow, you know, that the kid's kind of falling apart. You walk up to him like, hey, what can I help you with? No, I'm good.
Yeah. Not being transparent.
No, I got it. Yeah. See, so they're not transparent. Right. And here's what I just crack up again, you know, Valencia, I said, how you feeling? And she tries to be tough. And she was like, I don't know. And she kind of, you know, and then she finally said, Dad, I'm really nervous. Like I'm really getting nervous. And then she says, I can feel the nervousness coming. And so we just stopped, put my hands on her, laid hands on her forehead and just started praying. Yeah.
But see, in that scenario, the kid that doesn't say, yeah, I'm nervous will never receive help because you can only be as real as you are.
Yes.
So if they never admit it, they'll never get help on that.
Right. That's correct. And now you could say this, well, yeah, okay. If my kid was on that team and he's not your kid, they're not going to say, hey, Dad, I get that.
Yeah, they can still say I've got a little nerves or some feelings.
Correct. And so Valencia went all in like, hey, I can feel the anxiety coming up. And so we just started praying. So I started with the logic like, hey, you know what, honey, the target's the exact same. It's going to be 10 meters, you know,
still
hey,
10,
you
still
still get your 15 air, walk through all that. Okay. And then we just prayed that, you know, it could release and you could just tell she was a different kid. She was more happy the whole time. Now the kids who aren't my kids, I walked up to them like, hey, how you doing? And you see they're really tight. And as soon as they said, hey, I'm not doing so well, or like, I don't know what's wrong. I just feel everything feels off. Like that kind of blanket statement, like, hey, everything's gone wrong. That's my opportunity to come in. Yep. And so a couple of kids, I'd say to them, I was like, hey, do me a favor. Can you do me a favor? And they'd be like, what? Like, can you do me a favor? They'll be like, yeah. I'm like, okay, I need you to smile. Then I start like cracking up, you know, and then they start smiling. Like, why? And I'm like, because you shoot better when you smile. Now I probably said that to like, let's say 9 or 10 kids. And there was only 2 kids that kind of believed it. And I walked back to them. I'm like, hey, I don't lie, right? And then, you know, in particular, 2 females, they would just look at me, kind of smile, start laughing. And actually, they did really well. Sweet. The rest of the people didn't, and they didn't get the answer. And I'm just like, Lord, this is so deep. So like Mary just approached the teacher. She just got a lesson.
Sure.
Okay. Theology lesson. Martha. Martha approached the teacher. She gets a teacher lesson, right? Mary approached the king, approached the God of the universe, you know, the Messiah. And all of a sudden she got deeply touched. And then all her group, let's just say that's everybody from the synagogue, like everybody shows up there to help her sister.
Sure.
Right. And they all got touched too. And then that moved God enough to make a miracle. Okay. Now dropping it to archery, the kids who said, hey, I'm struggling, and they started smiling, every time they come around, they turn around, I just look at them and smile. I didn't coach them. We didn't keep it cognitive because they can't go there. So we kept it smiling. It became behavioral, right? So your mind-body connection knows, right? So the 2 lessons are, number 1, God knows, right? God knows how transparent you are, and he'll respond accordingly to your transparency. The second thing is your mind and body connection knows. If your mind and body are off, you fall apart. The second you say, hey, I'm off, now you can be reset because you're open for a solution. If I'm closed, I don't need a solution. I got it.
Yeah.
Right. So my like sabbatical issue is, man, I got to get better at just working in that transparency, and I got to get better at seeing where people are. And then here's what's hard for me: when someone says I'm good and I know they're not, I can leave them there.
Yeah.
Because you start to battle, and then you get an argument, then it just gets weird. Then you're like, bro, I know you're lying. And
and you're fighting with something that they don't even want to change.
That's correct. So I can see answers from me on both sides. So I want you to think as a listener, wow. So God knows how transparent I am, and my mind-body connection knows.
Sure.
So stop lying to God, stop lying to yourself, and you see these amazing things happen, right?
Hold on. I listened to a podcast back to the counterfeit thing, that people at the Federal Reserve and people that study money don't study counterfeits to pick out the fake.
Yes.
They study the real thing so that when they see the fake thing, immediately they know it's off.
That's dope.
When that's what I think that's what we do. We try to figure out all the fake stuff or the things we're not doing and should be doing. And in our reality, if we just focus on the main thing, all that other things will be counterfeit. We'll be able to spot them easier because we know, okay, this 100% is the main. It feels, it looks, it touch. So just by even touch or smell, or they know this is the real thing rather than worrying about all the other options. Let's just focus on the main thing.
Yeah, that fits too, because like I'm trying to say, get closer to God, hold myself up to the light so you can kind of see through it. Yeah. You're saying the same thing. Stay closer to what's real.
Yeah, just focus on what's real,
and you'll be able to spot
else, that's fake. That's fake. That's fake. You don't have to worry about the fakes.
Right. Yeah. And so if you're focused on the outcomes, you'll always fail. But if you focus on your intent, like how can I be more mind body released? Right.
Sure.
So Valencia shot her first 50, which is, every round is 5 arrows, 6 rounds. So she shot 5 arrows, all 5 are 10s. So that's 50. So that's a perfect round. That's the first time in her life she's done it in a tournament, and it's at the state level in front of all the pressure. Right. So when you can release people, make them loose, Valencia steps up and shoots her first 50. So then she made her dad and all the coaches do push-ups in front of the whole auditorium.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
you got another one, or is those two wrapped in?
Those are the 2 points. That's it.
Okay. Mm-hmm. My first one is during this time, I've really tried to focus on enjoying the day or the moment. So in the season of life I'm in, it's way more chaotic than like your season of life. Like you and mom call it your simple life.
Bro, I ain't going back.
You got one daughter is at home.
Diapers.
Yeah.
Poop up
you
their
just
back.
pick her up, you come back. And I'm not saying that it's easier or harder one, but the crazy of the day-to-day.
Chaotic.
Yours is not as chaotic as mine.
Correct.
Your house is more calm.
Correct.
You have 3 people to try to figure out where you're going to go out to eat. So I got, diapers and kids crying and yelling and screaming, and
booty rash.
She touched the other night. They got a huge fight because Alicia bought 2 toothbrushes, one blue, one red. Both wanted the blue.
Back to the green bowl.
Where's
Terrence?
They never want blue anything. But once one said, anyway, so that's my life. And so, or like the other night, actually last night, Eliza came downstairs and crawled in my bed. She had a bad dream.
Eliza's 4.
Yeah, she's 4. So it's like a tough, my first instinct's like, get your butt back in bed. How dare you come? And then I'm like, man, there's going to be a day where I'm like, man, I wish she would come crawl in my bed and I can cuddle her for a little bit and then walk her back upstairs in a couple of minutes.
Right.
She actually ended up falling asleep, and then she tapped me and she's like, Dad, are you going to take me back up? And I was like, yeah, let's go back up.
That's actually good. Mm-hmm.
So in those moments, or like their favorite thing to do is to create plays at night. So it's zoo, it's ballerina, it's a show, it's whatever it is. And it's like, so from time to time as a dad, it sometimes just gets frustrating because it's like, man, 15 minutes and then it goes on and it changes. And 35 minutes later, we're still watching this zoo play. But there's going to be a time where I'm going to watch.
That's the show choir life, bro.
Yeah. Which I never thought I'd be in. But so it's like, God really said during this time, like, man, we super slowed down in every area of our life, even switching from church to Siouxland Christian, and really, really focus on the moment. So my challenge during this time for anyone else is, like, can you just really try to take away all the crazy and understand that this moment will never be the same?
Yes.
I'll never have a 7, 4, and 1.5-year-old ever again. And I want to enjoy all the stages. I want to enjoy the 7 at the 7-year-old. I want to enjoy the 4-year-old. I want to enjoy the 1, and I really want to pause life. And which that leads me to the second part of this. Number one is the other night I was just sitting there thinking about, like, man, God is so good. And I don't think we take time to understand that the life we're living right now, me and Alicia personally, is the thing we've been praying for so long.
Yes.
And we did a podcast a while ago that's don't complain about answered prayers when they're answered.
Yes.
And remember that you prayed, but this is a different idea like it's almost like I forgot how awesome God has been over the last year, because we're not in a struggle. Sometimes I grow closer to Jesus in valleys because I'm so dependent on him.
Yeah.
And during this last 2022, we've went through some valleys, but since starting at Siouxland Christian, I mean, it's literally the dream job in the dream environment, doing exactly what I'm wanting to do. I've been called to change the world, but one student at a time, and do videography. And I'm doing both of them under one roof with vision and flexibility, and
you get a large group chapel once a week.
Yeah, all of it. I mean,
So
goals, future plan, everything. So it's like, I just had to take a moment and say, like, man, thank God. And I don't think sometimes we do that when things are going really well, is to pause and be like, man, he's so good. And the things we've thought this time last year, we were literally trying to figure out, if we're moving out of Sioux City, how are we going to be in ministry and leave Morningside, but still stay in Sioux City, because I didn't feel released from Sioux City. So we were talking about planning a church. I mean, all these crazy ideas. We never ever thought I'd ever be in a school as a teacher. So like
Mr. 2.0 GPA, a teacher.
So to go from like thinking like, man, we might be moving out of Sioux City and don't have any idea what the future is, to like, we are thriving on every level. Like, we just needed to take a moment and thank God for that.
Yeah. Okay. It's thriving, but it also feels chaotic. So talk about those two differences. We're thriving, but it's chaotic.
Yeah. Because that's the season we're in, though. So I want to enjoy that season.
Right.
Like, I don't want to, we're in a winter season here. Let's enjoy winter.
Right.
Let's be thankful that we have some of the things we do. Some people don't get to enjoy the snow. So that's what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say, man, some people don't get to have 3 kids ever running around the house just screaming for no reason. That's what they're doing the other day, just lapping and screaming.
Yes.
And Milana was behind him.
Right.
Like thank God that they have the environment that they're living in, godly parents. I mean, just the whole, it's you just need to take a moment, whatever your life situation is, and be thankful for it.
But how can you do it? So under the chaos, people, if I try to say, hey, you should look at the what moment, right? What, right? Okay. That's the what moment. Like, look at all the things you prayed for. You got it all. If I tried to do that, right, the naysayers would say, right, the haters are going to say it's fake. It's like, oh, you're just being this false positive. Oh, you're just using false hope. But how can you stay focused on the glory of God, the goodness of God, the love of God, even though in the middle of the chaos? Like, people get overwhelmed by the chaos.
Because to me, my chaos is not really that chaotic. It's more frustrating. Like, there's been moments like last year, this time, absolute most frustrated I've ever been with God in my entire life.
Yes.
We've walked through that already.
Yes.
This time, it's really not that frustrating.
Okay.
Like, thank God I got 3 girls that can scream.
Frustrating.
There's a lot of people that pray to have 1 kid and never can. And then they go different routes for adoption and all that.
Yeah.
But I got 3 biological children that we had no struggle with. I mean, it's just like, I think you need to understand how good you actually have it.
Correct.
Because the problem is, okay, we're trying to redo our kitchen, and Alicia was originally looking at like, quartz and granite, and I was like, oh, hey, we're not quartz and granite type countertop.
If you're old, you'd be like, hey, we ain't moving on up like the Jeffersons. We ain't moving on up yet.
No, pause. We ain't doing marble. And it's like, then we got some friends, and thank God that they're blessed to be able to do that. But we got some friends, and I got some buddies, and she has some girlfriends that they can do all that. They can do the custom cabinets. And so it's like, we can get down on ourselves and go, oh, we can't do custom cabinets. We got to do the stock ones from Lowe's. But dude, thank God we can even do the stock one from Lowe's. There's a lot of people that can't even redo their kitchen.
Right.
So that's where we always want to be, is like, obviously I would love to be able to spend $30,000 on a custom kitchen. I can't, but I can spend what we're spending. And thank God that I'm able to do that.
Correct.
So wherever you're at, thank God for it. You got a car that barely drives. Thank God you got a car.
Right.
I just complained the other day because my tire was flat. Thank God I got a truck that has a flat tire.
Yes.
There's a lot of people that don't have the flat tire. So rejoice in the flat tire because I have one.
Yeah.
So that's number 1. Which leads me to number 2 is like, personally, well, like when me and Alicia got married, this is what I told her. I said, hey, I'm going into full-time ministry. God could call me anywhere around the country, and our family then is going to be in ministry. So if we're at a church, God says, hey, I think the family needs to move. I need you to be on board to be able to do that. And in the midst of that, God's going to have a plan and purpose for your life too. But the calling is upon my life. And because it's on my life, it's on our life.
Right.
And so that's what Montezuma was. That's what Morningside was. That's what this time going to Siouxland Christian was. People kept asking me, well, why did you quit? And why did you leave? We didn't leave and we didn't quit. We followed. Those are 2 different things. I didn't quit. and I didn't leave. God asked me to go to a different place. So we followed him.
Correct.
Those are two different things. So, but personally, that's been a weird transition from being the local youth pastor with a thriving youth group on stage every Sunday, every Wednesday, with a title and people kind of looking up to that pastoral position, to pretty much being removed from that, to going to a different title, which is teacher, still good and awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And I still get to preach, but it's a different context.
Right.
And when you're in full-time ministry, and you tell people you're at a private Christian school, that isn't seen in people's eyes as full-time ministry. It's just not. I've had people come up to me, and I don't want to call any names out, but they've said like, "Oh man, I can't believe you left the ministry," or "Oh man, I can't believe you're not a pastor anymore," or "Oh, I can't. It's so sad that," I had one person tell me, "Oh, it's so sad that you are not in the local church anymore." It's like, none of those things are true.
Yeah.
And so I've really had to work on like, what does that mean personally? And for 11 years now, my serving and my call has been priority for our family, and it's not anymore. It's Alicia's.
Yeah.
So her singing on the worship team is our priority. So the last 2 or 3 Sundays she sang, and I've been at home with the girls because they've been sick. So I haven't been able to go. So that transition is way different. And so now it's trying to figure out, what does that look like? And do I need to be the local youth pastor at a church to do what God's called me to do? And I've never felt that. I've never felt that I needed a title. And so it comes to, I'm going to do whatever God has asked me to do without a title. And the crazy part about it is, to tell all those naysayers like, "Oh, you left ministry." No, I left a youth group that was running 80-ish to every Tuesday. We got 200 kids at chapel, and I don't have to do AirPod giveaways. I don't have to do pizza after service. Like they're there. And so when you start doing the numbers, I just punched them real quick. It's from Orange Curriculum. 7 days a week, or 7 hours a day is normal school day. 5 days a week, you got 180 days. So you do the math up there, you're close to 2,000 hours. The local church, the statistics show from Pew Research that it's 40 to 50 hours a year you get to be with students.
Correct.
So I'm every single day rubbing shoulders with students. So for someone to say those things, I try not to take people's words that are negative, all that, but over time it's been, you begin to question some of those things. And so I was talking to Alicia last night about that. Like, man, God has been so good that we never thought any of this would happen. But in all reality, he really just put me around students way more.
Yeah. I mean, in a
way we never could have ever imagined.
In all honesty, it's an upgrade.
For hours and influence. And at any day, a kid, like yesterday, a kid popped in my office twice. Like, that can't happen at a church setting.
Yeah. How long have we talked about this? That ministry is done better in real relationships than in a church. We've talked about that since we've known each other. I mean, since we've been in church. Like, church is important. It's the corporate body. The Bible says, "Do not forsake the assembling." That means you go to church.
Yeah.
There's a lot of reasons for it. This isn't a knock on a church or any church.
We still attend church.
We're still attend. Yeah, right. But here's the thing: if you and I weren't that close, we would maybe get invited to the same houses, maybe the same meetings. Maybe we'd see each other, maybe twice a month. If we're tight, we see each other every day.
Yeah.
Maybe 4 times a week, right?
Yeah.
You get to see these kids every single day.
Definitely.
So from a time stamp situation, like, you could look at this is actually researched, but best friends, like if you consider yourself a best friend, you have had independently 200 hours together. To be considered an acquaintance is 20 hours, right?
Yeah.
A close friend is 80 hours. So if you put the numbers together, you can get to, a close friend a lot faster every day than once a week.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And people, obviously I'm not with every single kid 7 hours a day, but I'm available.
Right.
And so that is, the goal right now is to be available as much as possible. So when they do need me, that bridge has already been created.
Yes.
So it's the conversations in the multipurpose room, in the lunchroom, during recess, during Eagle small group, that we're just constantly laying that brick down so that at one point they're going to need to cross that in a time of tough need and situation. So all that to say, me and Alicia both feel like God has this season has been perfect for us, and to remove me away and to really conquer a battle that I've struggled with for 15 years now. Mm-hmm. So God's really been clear and spoken to me, spoken to her, that this season is really to focus on her and the worship team at Family Worship Center, me to do what I'm called to do at the church or at the school, and then to get healthy. And so this sabbatical has really been trying to figure out why can't I get healthy? Why can't I overcome that? What is the food struggle? In this podcast, you've heard me. I mean, this has been 3 years and counting. 2007, 2008 is when I really started struggling with my weight. So all that to say, been on a journey through the sabbatical on trying to figure out weight loss surgery, trying to get that under control and figure out what that looks like. And so,
moving toward that uncertainty.
Yeah. Hopefully in a couple of weeks, we'll get the gastric bypass scheduled. And then that then is a tool for me to try to be overcome a battle I've had for a long time. So I've been doing a lot of work underneath the surface, trying to figure out what that looks like. Why, how come I got there? Why can't I control this? Is really, Alicia says it all the time too. It's one of the areas that I haven't been able to conquer my whole life. Like I'm all in on going in on videography, on video game, anything that we do, the school, the chaplaincy, all that stuff. But the only thing I don't ever go all in on trying to conquer is my weight. And so really trying to dive down deep during this time away to figure out what that looked like. And then what's the journey forward, even after surgery.
Yeah. People talk about this all the time. Like, what did Paul mean when he's like, he's got to live with this thorn in his side, right? What did he mean? People go to like an addiction or a secret sin, all that kind of, I don't believe that's true. I go back, we guys have always played video games your whole life, but I go back to like a video game, you know what I'm saying? So like, if you just take like Smash Bros, right? No matter which character you have, he has a weakness. Your job is to use the strength to kind of protect that weakness, right? Every single character has a certain like attack skill, and everybody has their own thing. Like even if you look at like Call of Duty or Valorant or whatever, they all got their attack skill. Like he can see through a wall, or this guy's got like special bomb ability. You know what I'm saying? Like this guy can walk and you can't hear him walk, or whatever it is. If you focus on your skill, your weakness doesn't look as bad. But if you only focus on your weakness, it's overwhelming and people shut down. I believe, and mine has been sometimes public speaking. Mine is reading, writing my book. I mean, that's like, just because of the whole dyslexia side, like that, it's a weakness that like you just make, man, why can't I just do it, and you get mad at myself. So I get mad at myself and start writing again. Okay. So everybody has a thorn. I really do believe it. And the only way to level yourself up is to conquer that or push through it, be aware of it, stop hiding it, and you've been working at it for a long time. So it's good. It's time.
Yeah, that's the goal. So that's where we're at. I mean, try to enjoy the moment and then be so thankful that God has blessed you with what he's blessed you. And me personally, this has been 2022 was the hardest and best year of our life. And I don't say that flippantly. I really believe, we left a dream job at Morningside because God asked us to leave, and we followed him to step into another dream job with a great environment and vision and
complete darkness. Like, well, I don't mean darkness like in a bad, like darkness, but a complete, like I would say, uncertainty. Yeah. Like we had no idea how this is going to look, how it's going to work. I hope it's going to work.
And not many people know that, but when we decided to leave Morningside, we had no idea where we were going. Yeah. Suleman Christian wasn't lined up for a month or two after we decided to leave Morningside. Right. And then to say, okay, Tyler, you're not the pastor. You don't have the title. I mean, I'm the chaplain at the church. It carries or at the school. But my priority is not serving the local church. That's Alicia's right now to say, okay, get your life and health right. Because more than ever, I've seen the impact that's had on me personally. Yeah. And goes back to bringing a full circle, the transparency thing that has only been able to happen because me and Alicia have had a lot of conversations that are like, hey, it's not cool anymore to be the funny guy who smashes food. Like at some point that literally is going to kill you. Yeah. Like it hasn't had any effect on my life yet. Yeah. But how many years can I keep saying, I don't have diabetes, I don't have high cholesterol, I don't have, high blood pressure, all this stuff. I can't keep saying that for much longer.
Yeah. Or I'm the big guy who can ball.
Yeah. Or the funny dude, or, I was like, don't let the big body fool you. That's always my line too. Yeah. Don't let the big body fool you. So like at some point we got to be transparent to say, you can't keep doing that. Yeah. Correct. And then once we did that, once I said, once I started telling Lisa, you know what? My knees are a little sore than before. And especially at the school, it's so exhausting. The school is so much harder than working at the local church. Yeah. Just from physical walking and talking and up all the time. So that's really what we're trying to focus on. And I really truly believe that that's the last thing that we need before God really pours. We talk about going from glory to glory and being faithful with the little. God will be faithful with much. I do really truly believe that's one of the last things that God is asking me to conquer and to overcome before something crazy is going to happen.
Well, Philippians 3:13-14 says that you are on an upward call. Yeah. So people always go, where'd you get your climb from? Like, I don't believe you should be striving. Philippians 3:13-14. Yeah. Take a look at it. The upward call in Christ Jesus. Like it's an upward call. It's a climb. So stop playing with yourself.
Yeah. And I don't mean so many people, I hope you don't take this way. You can't be overweight and still be used by God. I'm not saying that. I'm saying this is saying me personally, I feel like God wants me to be healthy because that's the best me. That's the best version for me. And I do believe that Satan allows gluttony and overeating to be a real quiet sin that's allowed in the church, and for Christians to overlook it. Personally.
These are one of those things that you can say because you're in that lane.
Yeah. So I'm not saying you can't be fat and still be used by God.
Right.
I'm not saying that.
Right.
I'm just saying for me personally, I do believe God is saying, hey, let's overcome this, and then we'll see what else comes.
Got it. Okay. So if you could put what you learned in a call to action, like what's a call to action? One thing that people can do that you've learned.
Mine would be one twofold. Number one, be so thankful for what you have, the position you're in, the job you do have, the waiting in between a job if you're waiting. And then number two, be constantly praying about why you are in that season. So if you're in between jobs and you're waiting, thank God that you're waiting. Thank God that you have a little downtime. And then why, God, am I waiting? If you just got your dream job, thank God for the dream job. Why am I at my dream job? If you're at a terrible job, thank God for my terrible job because I'm still paying my bills. Mm-hmm. Why am I still at this terrible job? Those are the two things that we've really tried to do over this last little couple months.
Yeah. Hey, so when you're watching this, go to Renew the Mind podcast. We have a video or a podcast actually on gratitude, and we have a podcast on the waiting. Let's go. Transparency, right? Stop playing with your transparency. You can say what you want to by words, but we just saw with Martha, God will take you at your word. He takes you at your intent. So when we come and play this game, we talk and talk and talk. He hears your word. And he says, oh, okay. He checks your intent and he says, okay, you're not ready. Okay. We just saw also physically how that plays out. Just a simple thing of archery. We can do all kinds of things like job interviews. Like, if you try to like go perform somewhere, we can talk about all kinds of stuff. When your mind and body isn't connected with yourself, you're not congruent, you're not transparent, and you will fall down. So now, right, don't play with God. Be transparent with God because God searches the heart and knows the intent of man. Number two, don't play around with your transparency on yourself because your mind and body know. You can try to talk yourself into success, but that fake it till you make it crap. That's why we have so many people.
You can only get help with as honest as you are about your struggle.
Yes. So be transparent.
Love it.
So my call to action is be transparent with your intent. Be transparent with your intent.
Yep. Be
transparent with your intent. That's what God's been just hammering on me for like this whole time. So, okay.
Don't forget 2 times to be great when you feel like it and when you don't. On this podcast, we do try to renew your perspective, move towards uncertainty, and find what's awesome about that in every situation. We love you. Peace out.
Peace.
I had to realize what's inside of me. For all of the people that lied to me. For all of the people that said I would fall off. Oh, but what a time to be alive. I wrote this for everyone, feel like they counted out. You need to look in the mirror and tell yourself it's time to be who I am now. Greatness.